What's good? I'm RoupReviews, and welcome to my review of The Running Man. Now, what first got me interested in The Running Man was the fact that it was adapted by a Stephen King book by the same name. The next thing that caught my attention was the director of the movie, Edgar Wright, who is also known for a series of acclaimed movies such as Baby Driver, Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, etc. So, anticipated for this movie, I read Stephen King's book and absolutely loved it. But this is not a book review, it's a movie review, so let's just get right into it. So immediately after watching The Running Man, I basically broke it down into a list of pros and cons. Two pros right off the bat about The Running Man were the performances of Josh Brolin as Dan Killian and Coleman Domingo as Bobby Thompson. Now, Josh Brolin perfectly matched Dan Killian's manipulative and deceiving manner, and Coleman Domingo brought out just the right amount of energy for his character Bobby Thompson. And I will say too, The Running Man also just completely brought the action. It featured thrilling and action-packed sequences all throughout the movie. And I will say that some of these sequences were very creative, except for that Home Alone-esque sequence. And although you would think that this would be thanks to Stephen King, it actually was not. There were actually plenty of new action sequences that were not in the book, which I kind of enjoyed watching because it kind of just switched things up a little bit. And yes, there were a few things that were changed in the action sequences, but I will say that Edgar Wright tried to stay too true to the book. Now that we're talking plot, Edgar Wright fit an entire 400-page book into a 2-hour movie, which usually only means one thing: the pacing was super fast. The Running Man goes from one thing to another almost constantly, which makes the film feel chaotic. At times, it seemed like Glenn Powell was stuck in the middle of this, but he too had his flaws as the main character, Ben Richards. Ben Richards was called a lot of things throughout the movie, but the two things that he was called the most would be angry and smart. And yes, I completely agree. The entire movie, he was very angry, but in my opinion, he wasn't all that smart. And yeah, I did enjoy the action sequences from earlier on in the movie, but I also believe that that was the reason why he didn't come off as a smart guy. And yes, he was very smart in the book, but because of these changes, they almost made him seem more lucky than smart. Now, the last thing I'd like to touch up on is the comparison between Edgar Wright's Baby Driver and The Running Man. Now, this is not going to go too heavily into my score, but The Running Man just didn't feel like Edgar Wright's style. And yes, the action sequences were there, but at the same time, because of character flaws, they almost felt a little lacking. And I think this lack of style was not a breath of fresh air, and more of hoping for something that I didn't get. Yes, The Running Man had its good moments, but the cons completely outweighed the pros in this case. So I'm giving The Running Man a 2 out of 5. And my consensus is, you let me down, Edgar Wright. But still, thank you for Baby Driver. Thank you for watching, everybody. I know it's been a while since I've last posted, but I'm going to try to post a little bit more frequently. And yeah, continue to tune in. You can check out my Letterboxd at just RoupReviews. I'm pretty active on that. And yeah, thanks for watching.